Lee Sharpe, England, a teenage star at Manchester United who was once seen as Ryan Giggs's great rival for the spotlight. Sharpe won trophies at United but indulged in the party lifestyle and lost focus. Despite 265 United appearances, he never hit the heights expected of him. After leaving in 1996, his career dwindled through 6 lower league clubs before retiring in 2004, a far cry from the legend many predicted. Nee Lamptey, Ghana. Touted as the next Pelé, in the early 1990s, Lamptey dominated youth tournaments and impressed in Belgium. Aston Villa and Coventry City brought the prodigy to England, but he couldn't adapt and never fulfilled his potential. Poor guidance, personal tragedy, and constant moves undermined him. He drifted through clubs in 7 countries after leaving England, from Turkey to China, becoming a textbook cautionary tale of overhype. Mark Kennedy, Ireland. In 1995, Liverpool paid a British record fee for a teenager to sign Kennedy after the winger's electrifying displays at Millwall. Big things were expected at Anfield, but he struggled for game time and made only 21 appearances in 3 years. Failing to secure a role amid heavy competition, Kennedy moved on in 1998. Though he later became a solid championship player at Manchester City and Wolves, he never became the Premier League star many had hoped for. Danny Cadamarteri, England. The Everton striker burst onto the scene at 18 with 4 Premier League goals in the first months of 1997-98, including a famous derby goal against Liverpool. He was even mentioned alongside Michael Owen as a top English prospect. But Cadamarteri's form collapsed. He endured multiple year-long goal droughts and in 2001 was convicted of assault, hastening his exit from Everton. He spent the rest of his career bouncing around 8 lower league clubs, never coming close to the greatness once predicted. Francis Jeffers, England. Dubbed the Fox in the Box, Jeffers was an Everton prodigy tipped as England's next superstar striker. His 20 goals by age 20 earned an £8 million move to Arsenal in 2001. However, injuries and fierce competition, Thierry Henry and others, meant he never established himself. Jeffers scored only a handful of goals after leaving Everton and eventually wound up at Accrington Stanley, a humbling end that pretty much sums up a torrid 10-year period for the once bright talent. Jermaine Pennant, England. Arsenal splashed out £2 million to sign Pennant at age 15, a record fee for such a young player, believing he could solve England's wing woes. Blessed with pace and skill, he was hyped as a future star. But off-field discipline was a problem, including a brief jail stint, and he never cemented a starting spot in the Premier League. Pennant's later career included stints in lower leagues and even the Indian Super League, an underwhelming outcome for a player once so highly regarded. Anthony Letallic, France. After starring for France's youth teams, having won under-17 World Cup Golden Ball, Letallic was snapped up by Liverpool in 2001 amid great fanfare. The forward was expected to be a next big thing import at Anfield. He never adjusted to Premier League intensity and couldn't break into Liverpool's first team or impress on loans. Letallic drifted back to mid-table French sides and never came close to the stardom forecast when he arrived. Florent Cinema Pongol, France. Signed alongside Letallic in that double youth coup by Liverpool, Cinema Pongol had shone for France's under-17s as well. He was given plenty of chances at Liverpool, 65 appearances, but managed only 9 goals. The striker's early promise fizzled as he struggled to consistently impact games. After 5 years, he left Anfield, and although he later popped up in Spain and MLS, his career remained that of a journeyman rather than the world beater Liverpool had hoped for. David Bentley, England. Touted as the new David Beckham, Bentley came through at Arsenal and later dazzled at Blackburn with his crossing and free kicks. Such was the hype that Tottenham paid a big fee to sign him in 2008. However, Bentley never replicated his early form. Inconsistency and a waning passion for the game saw him fall out of favor. By 2013, at just 29, he had been without a club for over a year and chose to retire, a stark contrast to the superstardom many once predicted. Jack Rodwell, England. An Everton Academy graduate, Rodwell was a teenage midfield sensation likened to the next Rio Ferdinand or Gerrard. His composure and athleticism earned a move to Manchester City in 2012. But from that point, his trajectory went downhill rapidly. Injuries and lack of playing time at City wrecked his development. Subsequent spells at Sunderland, where he became symbolic of their decline, and Blackburn saw him struggle for form. Once expected to be an England regular, Rodwell became known as a flop and was even playing in Australia by his late 20s, a huge fall from grace. Micah Richards, England. Exploding onto the scene in 2005-06, Richards became England's youngest ever defender at 18 and was seen as the heir to Gary Neville. He was a powerhouse right-back and a cornerstone of early Manchester City sides, but injuries and perhaps complacency curtailed his progress. By 2012, he was no longer first choice at City. A move to Aston Villa brought more fitness issues. He effectively stopped playing by his late 20s. Richards admitted he could have, and probably should have, been a lot better. A career of unfulfilled potential despite a bright start. Michael Johnson, England. A dynamic midfielder at Manchester City in the late 2000s, Johnson drew Michael Ballack comparisons during his early days. City fans saw him as a homegrown hero in the making. Sadly, injuries, including a long-term knee issue, plus struggles with depression and anxiety, derailed him. By age 23, Johnson had made his final professional appearance. He quietly retired soon after, leaving everyone wondering what might have been had he stayed fit and focused. Giovanni dos Santos, Mexico. A Barcelona academy prodigy often mentioned alongside Lionel Messi in youth, Gio dos Santos arrived at Tottenham in 2008 with massive expectations in North London. Spurs fans couldn't believe they landed a player of his reputation. Yet he never settled in England. His flashy style yielded few results at Spurs. Aside from a decent loan at Ipswich, his Premier League stint fizzled out. Giovanni revived his career somewhat in La Liga and MLS, but in England he's remembered as a wonder kid who never got going at White Hart Lane. Anderson, Brazil. After winning the Golden Boy Award in 2008, Anderson was seen as Brazil's next midfield superstar. Manchester United spent big to sign him from Porto in 2007. He collected trophies, 4 Premier League titles at Old Trafford, but individually he failed to live up to the hype. Weight issues, injuries, and inconsistent form meant Anderson was rarely a key player for Sir Alex Ferguson. Despite attacking pedigree, he scored just 9 goals in 181 appearances. He left in 2015 having never become the world beater many expected when he arrived as a teenager. Bojan Krkic, Spain. Bojan was heralded globally as the next Messi after coming through Barcelona's ranks and becoming their youngest ever player at 17. By his early 20s, however, he had lost his place at Barca and failed to secure long-term success in spells at Roma, AC Milan, or Ajax. He joined Stoke City in 2014 looking for a fresh start. While he showed flashes of brilliance in the Premier League, injuries struck again. Bojan never regained consistency and later drifted to smaller leagues. He ultimately retired at 32, never having reached the superstar status predicted for him at 17. Marco Marin, Germany. Nicknamed the German Messi for his dribbling, Marin was part of Germany's exciting 2010 World Cup squad. Chelsea snapped him up in 2012 when he was 23, expecting a creative spark. Instead, Marin quickly fell off the radar. He struggled to make any impact at Chelsea and was loaned out repeatedly. By 2014, he had completely disappeared from top-level contention after failing to live up to the early hype. Marin spent the rest of his career as a journeyman, playing in Greece, Serbia, etc., illustrating how a can't-miss prospect can fade fast. Federico Macheda, Italy. The Italian striker's story is a classic one-hit wonder. At 17, he scored a sensational last-minute winner on his Manchester United debut in 2009, instantly becoming a household name. That goal was supposed to launch a great United career. Instead, Macheda never made the leap to regular first-teamer. He was sent on 5 loans between 2011 and 2014 and struggled to make an impression. Eventually released, he bounced around clubs in Italy, Greece, Turkey, and Cyprus. Macheda's early glory remains the peak of a career that never took off as expected. Jack Wilshere, England. Once hailed as England's future midfield maestro, Wilshere famously outshone Xavi and Iniesta in a 2011 match, prompting hopes he'd be a world-class star. Arsenal fans and neutrals alike thought he was the answer to England's tiki-taka generation. Unfortunately, injuries ruined Wilshere's career. He missed an astonishing 323 games through injury over 10 seasons, repeatedly sidelined by ankle and foot problems. Those fitness woes prevented him from ever reaching his prime. After stints at Bournemouth and West Ham with only sporadic highlights, Wilshere retired at 30, what could have been talent whose body failed him. Bebe, Portugal. One of Sir Alex Ferguson's most bizarre signings, Bebe arrived at Manchester United in 2010 without the manager even scouting him first. Despite a heartwarming rags-to-riches backstory, the winger was out of his depth at United. Carlos Queiroz had recommended him, believing Bebe could become a regular for the Red Devils. But that never happened. He made just a handful of appearances, often looking lost on the pitch. After loans and a quick sale, Bebe carved out a modest career in Portugal and Spain. He's remembered at United as a cult flop, notable more for the curious circumstances of his transfer than any football he produced. Gaël Kakuta, France. In 2009, Chelsea so highly prized this young winger from Lens that they incurred a transfer ban due to irregularities in his signing. Kakuta arrived with a big reputation as a future star for the Blues. However, the move wasn't really worth the hassle. Kakuta never established himself at Stamford Bridge and became a perpetual loanee, being farmed out to clubs across Europe nearly every season. He eventually left Chelsea for good in 2015. Although he later enjoyed a decent career in France, the player once at the center of a tug-of-war ended up as just another talent that didn't pan out at Chelsea. Adnan Januzaj, Belgium. When Januzaj broke into Manchester United's lineup in 2013 with 2 brilliant goals on his full debut, some observers even tipped him as a future Ballon d'Or contender. The young winger's breathtaking displays had United fans dreaming. But after that eye-catching start, he failed to kick on. Changes in managers and questions about his attitude saw his opportunities diminish. By 2017, Januzaj left England for Real Sociedad. He became a solid player in Spain, but never the global superstar many thought he'd become based on that initial hype. Ravel Morrison, England. Perhaps the ultimate case of wasted talent, Morrison was described by Rio Ferdinand as the most naturally gifted young player I'd ever seen. Coming through Manchester United's youth ranks with Paul Pogba, he was expected to be a marquee midfielder for club and country. But Morrison's troubles were as legendary as his talent. Attitude issues, legal troubles, and instability off the pitch destroyed his progress. After being let go on a free transfer by United in 2012, he bounced between 7 clubs, including West Ham, Lazio, and various lower-tier teams. Despite flashes of brilliance, he never settled anywhere. By 2023, he was playing in the obscure reaches of the game, a poignant example of how even immense ability means nothing without discipline and focus. John Bostock, England. In 2008, 16-year-old Bostock was so highly rated that Tottenham fought hard and paid a tribunal fee to sign him from Crystal Palace. The midfielder had been Palace's youngest ever player and was tipped for Premier League greatness. Spurs fans thought they'd poached a future star, but it never materialized. Bostock didn't make a single league appearance for Spurs and was loaned out repeatedly. Eventually, he embarked on a winding career across 5 countries, from MLS to Turkey. Over a decade later, he returned to England in the Championship, a far cry from the top-flight stardom once predicted. Josh McEachran, England. A cultured midfielder, McEachran was the crown jewel of Chelsea's academy around 2010. Some at Stamford Bridge even fretted that signing Luka Modric in 2011 might block McEachran's path. So highly was he valued. Touted as a future England international playmaker, he got a brief first-team run. However, he managed just 11 Premier League appearances for Chelsea before dropping down the divisions. Lacking the physicality and perhaps opportunity to thrive at Chelsea, McEachran spent the following years in England's second tier. The early comparisons to greats ended up looking very premature as his career became that of a solid lower league pro rather than a Premier League star. Lucas Piazon, Brazil. When Chelsea signed 17-year-old Piazon from São Paulo in 2011, many saw echoes of Kaká in the attacking midfielder. Big things were expected if he developed under the right guidance. Unfortunately for Piazon, he became a victim of Chelsea's loan army system. The hype proved premature. He could never break into the star-studded first team. Instead, Piazon was sent on 7 different loan spells by the time he was 26. He eventually left Chelsea permanently after a decade on their books. Despite still playing professionally, in the leagues like Portugal's, his story serves as an example of a wonder kid whose momentum stalled due to constant moves and lack of stability. Saido Berahino, England and Burundi. A more recent cautionary tale, Berahino was prolific as a youngster at West Bromwich Albion. He scored 20 goals in his second season, drawing big praise. He was touted as the next great Premier League striker, and Spurs sought to buy him in 2015. But a toxic transfer saga saw that move collapse, and Berahino's attitude soured after West Brom refused to sell. His fitness and form dipped dramatically. He infamously went 913 days without a Premier League goal following the saga. After a disastrous spell at Stoke City, he departed England. By 2020, he had resurfaced in the Belgian league. A combination of off-field issues and a loss of focus caused Berahino's career to take a dramatic turn for the worse after such a bright start. Niklas Bentner, Denmark. Arsenal fans will remember Bentner as much for his supreme self-confidence as for his flashes of ability. Early on, though, he justified some hype. As a teenager on loan at Birmingham, he impressed, And on returning to Arsenal, he was seen as a future star striker. However, Bentner never kicked on from those initial displays. His Arsenal career plateaued amid inconsistency, and he gradually became a figure of ridicule for some glaring misses and off-field antics. He left in 2014 after 9 years, having never nailed down the starting spot. Subsequent modest spells in Wolfsburg, Nottingham Forest, even a stint in Norway, cemented his status as a talent that fell well short of the enormous expectations people once had. Renato Sanches, Portugal. After winning Euro 2016's Best Young Player award, Sanches was one of Europe's hottest prospects, so it was stunning when Swansea City got the Bayern Munich teenager on loan in 2017. He was expected to be the Swans' main star that season. Instead, Sanchez's Premier League spell was abysmal. He looked lost, even famously passing a ball into an advertising board during one match. He struggled massively in Wales and never showed his true talent in England. The loan ended in disappointment and a damaged reputation. To his credit, Sanchez later rebuilt himself as a key player in Ligue 1, winning the French title with Lille. However, his year in the Premier League stands as a high-profile flop considering the hype. Gabriel Obertan, France. Manchester United signed Obertan from Bordeaux in 2009 with the idea that the fleet-footed winger could help fill Cristiano Ronaldo's boots. At the time, Obertan was regarded as one of France's top young prospects. Unfortunately, he never adjusted to the Premier League's demands. After sporadic, uninspired appearances for United, he moved to Newcastle but fared little better. Obertan became a byword for unrealized potential. He had the pace, but not the end product. He eventually slipped down to leagues in Eastern Europe. Once hyped as a possible Ronaldo successor, he left England in relative obscurity. Niall Ranger, England. Ranger had raw talent as a striker and was viewed as one of Newcastle United's next big things in the late 2000s. However, his off-field life quickly overshadowed his football. Plagued by disciplinary issues and criminal charges, Ranger's development stalled. His bad boy antics became what he's most remembered for. After leaving Newcastle, he drifted through lower league teams and even served jail time. Despite early comparisons to top forwards, Rangers' Premier League promise evaporated fast. He spent the majority of his career in England's third and fourth tiers. Freddie Sears, England. A West Ham Academy product, Sears sent Upton Park into raptures by scoring the winner on his Premier League debut in 2008 at age 18. Hammers fans hoped they had uncovered a new homegrown hero. Sadly, that debut goal was as good as it got. Sears struggled to cope as defenses figured him out. He never scored again for West Ham in the league. After 36 top-flight appearances with little impact, he was loaned out repeatedly. Sears eventually found a steadier role in the lower leagues, notably with Ipswich Town, but that early hype in East London fizzled out almost as quickly as it began. Neil Mellor, England. Mellor was a Liverpool youth forward who became briefly famous for 2 moments in 2004. A stunning last-minute winner against Arsenal and a clever-headed assist to Steven Gerrard in the Champions League. Those flashes suggested he might be a star in the making at Anfield. He was even called Baby Rush after club legend Ian Rush. Yet injuries and competition meant Mellor never established himself at Liverpool. Those highlight reel moments were about as good as it got for him. He moved down to championship clubs like Preston North End and Sheffield Wednesday for the rest of his career. Mellor retired early due to knee issues, leaving Liverpool fans with just the memories of that brief, bright impact. Yaya Sanogo, France. Signed by Arsenal in 2013 after excelling for France's youth teams, Sanogo arrived as a raw, 20-year-old striker with big potential. Arsène Wenger even likened him to a young Nicolas Anelka. Unfortunately, Sanogo's time at Arsenal is remembered for all the wrong reasons. He failed to score a single Premier League goal, netting just once in 20 total appearances in the Champions League. Clumsy performances and injuries saw him fall out of favor. Though he had one memorable preseason game, 4 goals in an Emirates Cup match, he never translated that to competitive matches. Sanogo was loaned out and eventually released in 2017. By 2023, he was playing in the Armenian League, a far cry from the young wonderkid Arsenal fans once hoped would lead their line. Lazar Markovic, Serbia. Markovic was a £20 million signing by Liverpool in 2014, arriving from Benfica as one of Europe's top-rated young wingers. Quick and technically gifted, he was expected to terrorize Premier League defenses. Instead, he became arguably one of Liverpool's worst-ever transfers. Markovic struggled in his first season and fell out with manager Brendan Rodgers. By 2015, he was dropped and went on a cycle of loans to Fenerbahce, Sporting, Hull City, and Anderlecht, without making a mark at any. He didn't play a single game for Liverpool in his final 3 seasons at the club, eventually leaving on a free. The exciting signing delivered little excitement and little progress at Anfield, illustrating how even a hefty price tag and hype don't guarantee success. Dele Alli, England. Dele's inclusion is a bit different because he did hit great heights as a youngster, twice PFA Young Player of the Year and a star of Tottenham's team by 21. He was so good early on that it seemed impossible he would go anywhere but the top. However, after 2018, his career took a sharp downturn. A combination of factors caused his fall: mental health struggles, the loss of his mentor Mauricio Pochettino, and a failure to fit under subsequent managers. Dele's form collapsed, and he went from scoring wonder goals to struggling for minutes. A move to Everton in 2022 yielded just one league start, and a loan to Turkey did little to revive him. By 2025, at 29, Dele was a poignant figure of unfulfilled potential, far from the world beater he was expected to become. Each of these players had immense hype surrounding them in their youth. Fans and pundits thought they'd be future superstars. But whether due to injuries, personal issues, poor career moves, or failure to develop, they all fell short of those expectations. Their stories serve as reminders that in football, early promise doesn't always guarantee a glittering career.